I didn't tell anyone I was coming. Not because I wanted to surprise them, but because I was tired of being the only one who kept showing up. The plane touched down just after dawn. Sacramento looked exactly the way I left it 7 years ago, flat-wide skied and already too bright. I had only one bag small enough to keep under the seat. On my lap sat a little brown box tied with string corners dented from the overhead bin. Inside was Grandpa Frank's old transistor radio, the one he used to keep on the porch in the summers. I'd repaired it myself. New knob, fresh batteries cleaned out the dust behind the dial. I imagined him holding it, pretending not to smile. The cab turned onto our street, maple-lined and quiet like always. Number 2417 still had the chipped mailbox, the one I painted with him when I was 11, but the porch light was off. No newspaper, no signs of life. I paid the driver and stepped out. The lawn was overgrown. The air smelled faintly of dry leaves and something else, something like a house no one had breathed in for days. I knocked once, then again. No answer. The curtains were drawn. The wreath Mom used to hang after Thanksgiving wasn't on the door. I stood there longer than I meant to the gift box still in my hands. I checked my phone. No messages. Just an old reminder to refill Grandpa's blood pressure meds. The front steps creaked beneath me when I finally sat down. I didn't know yet that I had arrived in the right place at the wrong time, or maybe the only time left. I was still sitting on the front steps when I heard the squeak of a garden hose being dragged across concrete. Across the street, a woman in a fleece robe and slippers was watering a small patch of yellowing grass. She waved, then squinted. "Lily," she called. "Is that you?" It took me a second. "Mrs. Garcia?" I said, standing. Her face was fuller than I remembered, but the warmth in her voice hadn't changed. "Well, I'll be." She smiled, crossing the street with a slow, careful pace. "I thought you were in Seattle, right?" I nodded. "I am. Just got in." She looked past me at the dark windows. "They're not home, hon," I figured. I tried to keep my tone light. "You wouldn't happen to know where they went?" Mrs. Garcia hesitated, tugging at the end of her sleeve. "Margaret said something about Hawaii. Big family trip. Left just after Christmas." "Hawaii," I repeated. She nodded. "Maui, I think. Told me Franklin didn't want to go. Too old for long flights," she said. Her eyes flicked back to the house. "Figured you were with them." "I wasn't," I said. The wind picked up, catching the hem of my coat. Mrs. Garcia seemed to notice the shift in my voice. "You didn't know I shook my head. No one told me." "Oh." She glanced down, then said gently, "Listen, I don't mean to worry you, but the ambulance came maybe 10 days ago. I saw them load Franklin in. Looked bad. Thought someone would have told you." Her voice softened. He collapsed out front near the mailbox. Paramedics looked serious. My fingers went cold. "Which hospital? County General, I think?" "Thank you." I swallowed, trying to keep my voice steady. She gave a small, worried nod and crossed back over garden hose still trailing behind her. I stood there, phone in my hand, but I didn't call anyone. I already knew who wasn't going to answer. The woman at the reception desk wore glasses too big for her face and a lanyard that said Mona. When I gave her his name, she blinked, typed, then looked up slowly. "Franklin Adams, ICU, 6th floor." She hesitated. "Are you family?" "I'm his granddaughter," I said. "No one's been by," she murmured, almost to herself. "Not even once." She handed me a visitor badge and buzzed me through. The elevator smelled like lemon cleaner and something underneath it, metal or memory. I watched the numbers light up one by one. When the doors opened, the hallway felt colder than the lobby, the kind of cold that sinks through fabric and into skin. Room 623. I walked slower than I meant to. His room was at the far end. A curtain was drawn halfway. A monitor beeped rhythmically from inside, steady and unbothered. When I stepped in, I didn't recognize him at first. He looked smaller. His face was sunken, the skin around his eyes hollow and yellowed. Tubes snaked into his nose and mouth into his arms. A machine by the bed hissed gently, forcing air in and out of his chest with mechanical precision. His hands rested palm-up fingers curled slightly as if waiting for something he'd long stopped reaching for. I stood there for a while, the door half open behind me. I didn't cry. Not then. I just listened to the machine breathe for him. Eventually, I stepped forward, pulled the chair close. My knees bent slowly like my body knew something my brain hadn't caught up to yet. I rested my hand on his. It was dry, cool, familiar. "Hi, Grandpa," I whispered. "It's me." No response, no flutter of an eyelid, no twitch. Just the quiet churn of the ventilator and the occasional blip from the monitors. I reached into my bag and took out the little brown box. Set it gently on the table near the window, his old radio now fixed useless. He wasn't there to hear it, but I needed him to know I brought it anyway. I waited until I was out of the ICU wing, past the hand sanitizer stations and the too bright hallway. I found a quiet bench near the elevators and opened my phone. I didn't expect her to pick up, but she did on the second ring. The screen flickered, then settled. Blue sky, palm trees, a shimmering pool behind her shoulder. Then her face. My mother, Margaret Adams in full color. Sunglasses perched on her head, drink in hand, sun-kissed and smiling like it was just another Tuesday. "Oh, Lily," she said, brushing hair from her forehead. "Everything okay?" I couldn't speak right away. "Did you know?" I asked, barely above a whisper. Her brow furrowed. "Know what that grandpa's in the hospital? That he's on life support." She blinked, sighed. "He didn't want to come with us. You know how he is, always making things more dramatic than they are." He collapsed outside. "Alone," I said. A neighbor had to call 911. Margaret shifted in her seat. "We all needed a break, Lily. The stress. You have no idea. Keeping the house, your brother, the bills." "I've been the one paying the bills," I said, voice cracking. For the first time, she paused. "He could die," I said. "And you're by a pool." She looked away, then back. I didn't think it was that serious. Her voice was flat, measured, like she was reading from a script that used to work on me. "I need to go," I said. "Lily," she started. I ended the call before I heard the rest. She hadn't asked if I was okay. She hadn't asked about him. Just silence now, thick as water, ringing in my ears. I sat at the far end of the hospital cafe, back to the wall, a cup of lukewarm coffee untouched in front of me. My phone lay on the table like a question I hadn't answered yet. I opened the banking app, the joint family account created back in 2008 when Dad lost his job and I offered to help still had my name on it. I never removed it, never thought I'd need to. I scrolled, one charge after another. First-class airfare to Maui, resort fees, a spa package at the Four Seasons, a dinner for 6 at a place I couldn't pronounce, a new necklace from a boutique in San Francisco. Then Chloe's name twice, some kind of online influencer service. Brand visibility package, it said. No sign of Grandpa's prescriptions, no co-pays, no home care services, just pleasure neatly itemized. I blinked at the numbers, added them in my head. Tens of thousands gone. My thumb hovered over the settings icon. I tapped. A message popped up: freeze all debit activity for this account. Yes, no. I stared at it. My heart was beating loud in my chest. Not fast. Just hard, like it wanted me to hear something. Yes. Then another message. This action will suspend all connected cards. Are you sure? Yes, the app spun once, then again. Success. Freeze initiated. Allow up to 30 minutes for full processing. I locked the screen. My reflection stared back at me in the black glass. I looked tired, not angry, not righteous. Just someone who had finally stopped pretending not to see. They'd left him with nothing. So now I left them with the same. And I did it quietly. It took 47 minutes. That's how long after the freeze before the phone started buzzing. First came a call from Kyle. I didn't pick up. Then Chloe. Then Mom. Then Kyle again. Then a number I didn't recognize, Hawaii area code. I let them all go to voicemail. The screen lit up like a slot machine gone rogue. Texts poured in. Kyle. What the hell, Lily? None of the cards are working. Are you serious right now, Chloe? I'm literally stranded. I have a collaboration scheduled. You ruined everything. Mom, no text. Just a voicemail. I played it. Lily. Lily, what are you doing? You ungrateful little brat. After everything we've done for you, you want to humiliate us? Your grandfather would be ashamed. You don't get to make these decisions. Fix it. Now. I replayed it once. Not for the words, they were exactly what I expected, but for the tone. It wasn't grief. It wasn't worry. It was fury. The kind that comes from losing control, not from losing someone. I scrolled back through the texts. Kyle was now demanding bank details. Chloe had sent a crying selfie with the caption, "Do you even care what you've done to me?" I didn't answer. I watched the notifications roll in, each one louder in silence than the last. Then I turned the phone face down, leaned back in the stiff cafe chair, and stared out the window at nothing in particular. There was no satisfaction, no rush of justice, just a hollow space where guilt used to live. And in its place, something quieter. Certainty. When I returned to the ICU, the machines were still ticking in rhythm, oblivious to everything that had happened while I was gone. Grandpa hadn't moved. His chest rose and fell under the ventilator, as steady and fragile as before. I sat down, same chair, same angle, same silence. And that's when I noticed it, a corner of yellowing paper barely visible beneath the tray table, pushed to the side, tucked under with care, not by accident. I reached for it, fingers brushing metal, and pulled. A manila envelope, creased at the edges. My name written in his handwriting, clean block letters, all caps. Inside, a printed document signed and notarized. Durable power of attorney, healthcare and financial. It named me. Not Margaret, not Kyle, not Chloe, just me. There was a copy of a handwritten will updated 8 weeks ago, and one small note written on a torn receipt, "Kiddo, don't let them rewrite this story." Grandpa. My throat closed. He knew. Somehow he knew. He hadn't called me, hadn't warned me. Maybe because he couldn't. Maybe because he believed I'd come anyway. Or maybe this was the warning, left exactly where I'd find it. I folded the papers back, placed them gently in the envelope, and tucked it into my coat. Then I sat beside him again. This time, not just as a visitor, but as the only person he trusted to finish what he couldn't. Edwin Reese still used a flip phone. I found that out when he returned my call from a number I didn't recognize and asked to meet at the same diner Grandpa used to take me to after Sunday service. He was already there when I arrived. Window seat, black coffee, no cream, no sugar. "Lily," he said, standing. His suit was older than I was, but pressed. I hoped we'd never have to meet like this. I slid into the booth and placed the envelope on the table. He opened it without a word, read through the document slowly. No dramatics, just the steady focus of someone who's seen too many families come apart behind closed doors. When he reached the handwritten note, his expression shifted, not surprise, just recognition. "He gave this to you directly?" he asked. "No, I found it. In his hospital room, hidden under the tray." Reese nodded. "He stopped by my office 8 weeks ago. Told me he had a feeling. Said he didn't want to burden you unless he had to. That's why he didn't call." I murmured. He was proud, Reese said. But not foolish. He knew how things were leaning. We went through the next steps. First, petition for temporary conservatorship, both medical and financial. Second, notification of the court and hospital administration. Third, account audit to track misappropriated funds from the shared account. "Do I have to appear in court?" I asked. "You can do it virtually," he said. "But I wouldn't recommend it." "Why not?" "Because they'll show up in person," he said, folding the envelope closed. "And if you're not there, they'll fill the room with their version of the story." I nodded slowly. "I'll be there," I said. Reese leaned back. "Good, then we'll make this official by morning." We parted outside. The air had turned sharp, the kind that makes your breath show. He offered a handshake. His palm was dry and firm. Back in the car, I sat still for a long time, fingers on the steering wheel, eyes on nothing. Grandpa had planned for this, and now I had to finish it. The courthouse was quiet in that particular way buildings get when the stakes are private, but the outcome is public. I sat on the left side of the room, hands folded in my lap papers in a manila folder beside me. Across the aisle, Margaret wore a beige blazer too thin for the weather. Kyle sat stiff beside her, chewing the inside of his cheek, same as he did during high school finals. Their lawyer looked polished. He gave me one quick glance, then turned his attention to the judge. Her name was Eleanor Clean, mid-60s, no nonsense in posture or tone. She called the session to order. My attorney, Mr. Reese, began by outlining the facts: my grandfather's condition, duration of hospitalization, lack of visitation. Then came the documents, the durable power of attorney, the updated will, the evidence I'd found beneath the hospital tray. Then came the finances. He read off the transaction history like an obituary for trust. Tens of thousands drained from the shared account, none of it used for medical care. When it was Kyle's turn, he stood buttoned his jacket like he was preparing for a TED Talk. "Your Honor," he said smoothly, "my sister has always been emotionally intense. She's had struggles in the past. We've supported her when she lashed out." "Objection," Reese said sharply. "Irrelevant. Inflammatory." Judge Clean raised a hand. "Mr. Adams," she said to Kyle, "stick to facts. No character assessments unless asked." Kyle sat down without another word. Then Margaret stood. "I raised that girl," she began. 9 months carrying her ballet lessons braces. "Mrs. Adams," the judge interrupted. "We're not here to discuss orthodontics. We are here to review medical authority and financial misappropriation." A silence fell over the room. Reese slid a copy of a recent email across the table, one Kyle had sent to extended family, accusing me of manipulating Grandpa's condition for control. Judge Clean read it slowly, face unreadable. Then she spoke. "Ms. Adams," she said, turning to me, "based on the evidence provided and in the absence of legal or medical opposition, I'm granting you full conservatorship over your grandfather's medical and financial affairs." She turned to Margaret and Kyle. "You are hereby barred from access to any accounts or decisions related to Mr. Franklin Adams pending further court review." Kyle looked at the floor. Margaret's lips tightened, but she said nothing. I didn't gloat. I didn't even breathe deep. I just nodded. The hospital was quieter that night, or maybe I was just listening differently. I walked the hallway to room 623 without thinking each step more familiar than the last. The light above his bed was dimmed, casting a soft glow on the edges of the machine and the silver in his hair. I took the same chair, pulled it close. The room smelled the same plastic alcohol swabs, the faint echo of something sterile and slowly fading. I sat in silence, not expecting anything. Then his hand moved. Just barely, the fingers twitching like they'd forgotten how to grip. I leaned forward, heart pounding in my ears. His eyes fluttered, not wide open, just enough to find something. Or someone. "Grandpa," I said, barely breathing. His gaze wandered for a second, then settled. His lips parted dry and pale. The machine kept breathing for him, but his voice somehow slipped between the pulses of air. "I knew." He rasped, barely louder than the hum around us. "Knew you'd come." That was all. Not a plea. Not a farewell. Just a truth he'd kept safe until I arrived. I didn't cry. I only pressed my forehead gently to his hand, still warm this time. Held it like I was afraid it would float away. And in that moment, I stopped waiting for someone else to do what needed doing. He had waited long enough. Grandpa passed 3 days later. Peacefully, they said. The machines stopped before sunrise. I was there. Not holding his hand, he didn't need that. I just sat close enough that he wasn't alone. The funeral was small, quiet, just how he would have wanted it. No slideshow, no flowers flown in. Just the minister from his church, a wooden urn, and the folding chair he used to sit on every afternoon with a glass of iced tea. I didn't tell Kyle or Margaret the date. Chloe found out anyway, tried to show up. Security stopped her at the gate. She shouted something about forgiveness and how dare you, but I never turned around. The service had already started. Afterward, I sat in his old chair on the porch. The radio I'd fixed sat next to me. I turned it on. Static. Then a song low and warbled something from the 50s he used to hum while painting the fence. That night, I filed the paperwork to start a foundation in his name, the Porchlight Fund, a small nonprofit built from what remained of the estate dedicated to elder care patients without family. No big ambitions, just enough to pay for someone to sit beside them, make sure their meds were filled, that they were seen. I kept the name simple because he was. Weeks later, a letter came from the county. Margaret and Kyle were filing for review, contesting the will, claiming undue influence. I mailed back copies of the hospital records, the signed documents, and a copy of the voicemail. Margaret left me the one where she called me ungrateful. I never heard back. Some stories don't need repeating. Some families don't need reunion. The text came on a Sunday morning. Kyle, you happy now? We lost everything. He was our grandfather too. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I knew exactly what I wouldn't. No argument, no defense, no apology. I opened the message field, typed one line, and hit send. Me, you were never mine to lose. That was it. No more calls, no more shouting through lawyers, no more staged sorrow or broken inheritance. Just a silence I could live with. And somewhere I believed he would have understood.